Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Avia Cosey.
I'm 7 years old, riding in the car with my mom on a beautiful sunny day in Southern California, when she says to me, "Avia, I have something to tell you. You're going to have a little brother or a little sister." She was so happy when she told me, so I couldn't tell her what I was thinking, which was, who said I wanted a little brother or a little sister? I'm perfectly content being an only child. But I thought about it for the next few months and came to the conclusion that having a little sister would probably be a lot of fun, and I would probably enjoy that. So several months later, my father picks me up from school. It's my last day of school in the second grade. Picks me up early. He says, "Abe, your mom's gone into labor, so I need to take you to your grandmother's house." So I'm thinking, cool, I'm getting out of school early. I'm going to my grandmother's house. Summer vacation is about to begin, and my little sister is on her way. Several hours later, my sister has obviously arrived. I hear my grandmother very excitedly talking to my father. She comes in the bathroom where I'm sitting fully dressed on the side of the tub for some reason, hands me the phone. I say, "Hey, Daddy." He says, "Abe, your mom had the baby. You have a new little brother, and his name is Paul." I'm like, okay, this is not what I'm expecting to hear. You're supposed to be telling me that I have a new little sister. But like my mom, he was very happy, and I just couldn't reveal my disappointment to him. So the next day, he picks my grandmother and me up to take us to the hospital, and we pass by the school. The name of the school is Southern California Military Academy, SCMA. And SCMA isn't just any school. It's a very prestigious and historic school in Long Beach, California. It's an all-boys military academy that has students from all over the country. So my father says to us, he's going to that school. A few days later, they bring my new little brother home. My father places him on the center of their bed, and I finally get to spend time with him by myself. So I climb onto the bed, and I get very close to him, and I examine him in great detail. He opens his eyes, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and I take my index finger, and I place it in the center of his palm, and he instinctively squeezes it. And it is at that moment, at that precise moment, that I know I'm going to love this little boy for the rest of my life. And I was right. I love that boy. Anybody who knows me knows I love my brother. Once when Paul was about 9 years old, he was walking his bicycle home, and I said, "What happened?" So he very angrily says, "My bike broke," and he slams it to the ground. The very next day, I went to the bank, and I withdrew more than half of the money in my little savings account, and I bought my brother a brand new bike. When he came home that day, the bus brought him home. I had the bike in the front yard, and I could see his face through the window, and he was so happy. He was so happy that he wrote about it in his journal, and the entry reads, "I was out riding my dirt bike, and I got a flat. I came home mad with the world. What does my sister do? She goes out and buys me a brand new bike. My sister is, in my mind, the best in the whole world." When he's a baby and I hear him crying, I would leap out of my sleep, rush down the hall to get him. He was always waiting for me because he always knew I was coming. Well, as my father predicted, Paul did attend SCMA, and he had some good days and he had some not so good days. Pick him up from school, and a couple of times I could tell by the look on his face as he's approaching my car, I know exactly what happened that day. But I'd ask him, "What happened?" "I got 35 demerits for fighting." I say, "Boy, give me that demerit slip." And I'd reach over into my glove compartment, get a pen, and I'm like, "This is the last time I'm signing Mom and Dad's signature." He's like, okay. But he had more good days. Paul actually achieved the highest rank at the school, which is the rank of regimental commander. He was the highest ranking cadet at the academy, which gave him complete command and control over the entire student body, which was about 600 cadets. And he was only the third African American in the school's 72-year history to achieve that honor. And he, ironically, was the last regimental commander because the school closed a year after he graduated. 17 years old, I leave home, go to college, I graduate, move to Atlanta. Paul is a graduating senior, and we're all anxiously awaiting his decision on where he's going to attend college. He calls me at work one day and he says, "Ave, you're the first to know I made my decision. So I said, let me guess, Tulane. He says, nope, Morehouse College. So I'm like, yes, we're gonna be together again. He comes, summer of 1990. He comes to Atlanta. He's literally 10 minutes away from me, and we spend a lot of time together. I leave work one day, it was October 24th, 1990. I went to Morehouse to watch him play football. After the game, he and I walked back to his dorm, and we hugged, parted ways. I went home that night. I got home late that night, and I was exhausted. Went to bed. A few hours later, I'm being shaken out of my sleep by my best friend and roommate, Dawn. She says, Avia, get up. You got to get up. Paul was in a bad car accident. So, I jump up, rush to the hospital with my aunt and my cousin by my side. On the way to the hospital, my mind is racing. There are a million things going through my mind. What happened? Who is he with? Is he okay? Is he gonna die? He's only 18 years old. He just got here. We get to the hospital. The first thing I do is call my parents who are in California. I tell them that Paul's been in an accident. I don't have the details. I'll find out and I'll call you guys back. My dad says, we're on our way. I turn away and I walk to where Paul is, and I see my aunt who does not cry under any circumstances, looking at me with tears streaming down her face. So I know what that means. No words are exchanged between the two of us, but I know that Paul has died. So I turn away from her and take, probably the longest walk of my life to call my parents back to tell them this news that would change our lives forever. My parents are home packing, preparing to come to Atlanta to take care of their son for, however long it takes. And they're stunned, obviously, by the news. But my mother says something to me that I will never forget as long as I live. And she says, Avia, this happens to other people, and we are not immune to it. Are you okay? I literally felt as if my mother was standing behind me, lifting me off the ground and standing me on my feet. I said, yeah, Mom, I'm okay. She says, Avia, bring your brother home. So I said, yes, ma'am. So hang up, turn back to take, the first steps to do what would be my final duty as Paul's big sister, and that was to bring him home. Next several weeks, months, years, obviously, were very difficult for us. Sadly, but not surprising to any of us, my father has a massive heart attack, dies at the age of 58, but we know that he's died of a broken heart. So 18 years later, I'm at work, and I get an email message that says, hello, Ms. Avia Cosey. I believe you may have some information about my family. So I'm thinking, there's not a lot of Avia Coseys running around, so I said, how can I help you? He didn't get back to me that day, but that evening when I got home, my ex-husband Kevin calls and he says, Ave, I got a message from a girl on Facebook. She says that her fiance, Tillman Johnson, is trying to contact you. So I said, I got a message today from a Tillman Johnson. He says, Avia, she says that he's trying to contact you because the two of you share the same father. He says that he's your brother. So I'm like, no. No. Don't want to hear it. Not buying it. My dad's no Rolling Stone, but I'm not stupid. I know how things happen, but I'm just not buying it. So he says, Avia, I think you need to talk to this guy. I saw his picture. He looks just like your dad and Paul. So I'm like, nope, goodbye, Kevin, click. So I find out that night and the following morning that a couple other family members have been contacted. So I'm like, now I'm getting a little irritated. Now I need to call this guy and ask him to please stop contacting my family. So I do. I call him, and I said, hello, may I speak to Tillman? He says, this is he. I said, Tillman, this is Avia. So I could hear him whispering to himself, I knew it. I said, I guess you and I need to talk. He says, yes, ma'am. Well, he goes on to tell me that he is my father's son. He says, I've always wanted to know you. I've always known that I have had a sister. He says, but I was afraid. And, here he is. He's a grown man. He's 28 years old. But he's also like a little boy because I could hear the fear and hesitation in his voice. And here I am, technically old enough to be his mother. For some reason, I felt compelled to shield and protect this young man whom I've never met, don't know anything about. And he says, I just don't want to be rejected. So I said to him, let me tell you something. If you are my father's son, the last thing that you have to worry about is being rejected. You may worry about being smothered to death, but you will never, ever be rejected. So the following week, I need to tell my mother about this. And I said, Mom, I got this phone call. I tell her about this supposed brother. And my mother, once again, she says to me, she says, Avia, let me tell you something. She says, if you think for 1 second that I'm going to sit here and say, oh, no, that's impossible, or be angry about this, she says, I'm not. She says, if he is as wonderful as you say he is, why would I be angry about that? She says, I'm happy for you. I'm happy that you have another brother. He comes to Detroit, meets my mom. She rolls a red carpet out for him. We have a wonderful time. The following month was my father's family's, that side of the family's family reunion. We traveled to New Orleans, my father's hometown, and he meets all of his aunts, cousins, everybody. He meets everyone. It was a beautiful time. 7 days later, his mother has a massive stroke, and 7 days after that, she dies. So within 2 weeks, here he has met the family that he has longed for and was curious about his entire life, but at the same time, he's lost the one person who'd been there for him his entire life, his mom, the person that he adored. Several of my aunts and cousins and I traveled to Alabama to attend his mother's funeral. We sat in a back pew as to not bring any attention to ourselves because we didn't want to distract from his mother's services. But everyone obviously knew who we were. So his relatives were coming over, are you Tillman's sister? Oh my God, he looks just like you. Saying to my cousins, are you Tillman's brother? You guys look just alike. It was a wonderful time. And it was not odd, but it was beautiful. These two families came together, united by this common bond. One grieving the loss of their daughter and mother and sister, the other celebrating and supporting their newfound nephew, brother, son. His uncle said to him as we were leaving the church, he says, Tillman, he says, son, I'm so happy for you. He says, when I look at these people, I can tell that you're a Pishon. You were raised by the Johnsons, but son, you're a Pishon, and I'm so happy that you found your family. And I just want to end by saying that God will perform miracles in our lives, and we've got to be open to receiving them and to recognizing them for what they are. And I just thank God that he opened my eyes and my heart to receive this brother. If anyone ever told me that I would have another opportunity to be a big sister to another brother who was just as amazing and wonderful as the first, I wouldn't have believed it. So thank you.
Avia Cosey.